a snapshot of our second round of the LEAP survey. And obviously, our goal was to understand some of the things that were happening after the Manitowoc Company closure was announced. First of all, I want to thank Investors Community Bank for stepping forward again and helping us do this project. Investors and Leede Research are the financial sponsors for this work. And we're both happy to continue this measurement and understand what the community is. Laura Wiegert, who is not with us this morning, has spent a lot of time with me, both designing and going through numbers. We're going to give you a snapshot this morning, just because of time and activity. And we are planning a longer presentation, probably in conjunction with the Chamber, coming up sometime in the next few weeks. But we did 271 completed interviews this year, as compared to 341 in 2015. That gives us an error factor of about plus or minus 6% on the information that you're going to see. This is kind of a nutshell summary of what we found. Interestingly enough, even though we had 70 less participants, the mix of the people that we talked to were almost identical to what we did in 2015. That's a very good thing in terms of comparable information. I think the lower response rate also tells us something as well, and that's the fact that if there were a lot of major red flag issues, we would have had stronger participation. So I think actually the lower response rate tells us that things aren't necessarily, the sky isn't falling in Manitowoc County. 42% of our respondents are projecting employment increases in the next 12 months. That's a wonderful indicator. Only 6% told us that they were going to decrease employment. But the interesting component there was that the percentage of decrease was notably sharper than it was in 2015. And what I'm kind of seeing as I get through the data is that we have not had quite as deep of impact in terms of the closure of Manitowoc Company as we might have thought we would have had, but those companies that are feeling it significantly. And I think that's going to be a factor we need to work on. As a result of that, in general, sales growth projections have declined for 2017, as has confidence in our local economy. Now, it's not again falling off the cliff, but there's certainly some concerns up there. We asked some direct questions about Manitowoc cranes, and 36% of the respondents indicated that their business was directly impacted by the closing. In that, we found that 77% of that group of people said that that impact was negative. Now, we actually had some that said positive, and we actually had some that said both positive and negative, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get in. This is interesting because we asked an open-ended question, and we said, what are the critical issues facing Manitowoc County in the next couple of years? We certainly would expect employment, jobs, and it's actually polar. It's people saying we need more workers, and it's people saying we need more jobs. The part that's unique and new is the red circle. Overall decline in the community and issues of drugs. Now, this is one of the unaided questions of business owners. So, I think it's reflecting, and as Mary was talking about the health of the community, certainly our drug-related issues in this community are significant, and they're impacting our employers as well as our community at large. But this was not something that we saw in 2015. This is a new issue. How do we address that? Bring in more people, bring in more companies, promote the area, create a task force, local leader group. I'm pleased to say all of those activities are underway. We've been working hard at Progress Lakeshore to coordinate resources with the Chamber and now the Convention and Visitor Bureau and make this a community focus on growth and attraction. In terms of our respondents, as I mentioned, we were fortunate, very comparable in terms of mix to the 2015 study, so we have good comparison information. Demographically, in terms of title, comparable. The one difference that we have here is we actually had some people, as we released the information, who are in communication channels either from the Chamber or from Investors Community Bank or from Progress Lakeshore, who were outside the county, who saw the survey link and said, well, your survey is kicking me out because I'm not in the county, but I'm impacted. So we actually had a small group, I think it was about 7 respondents that were from kind of border edge areas, but actually they were impacted as well. The one difference from this study is that we have a more moderate size mix. We're seeing more people with 31 to 100 employees and a few less in that 100 plus group. We had 64 full-time equivalents in the 2017 study as compared to 92, and our medians were actually pretty tight. Age-wise also, a little bit of difference here. We had more 55 to 64-year-old respondents, but our single married mix and some of the other components, spouses working, everything was relatively equivalent. Education, again, fairly comparable. Again, overall, the nice part of this is that we have people, comparable samples between groups. Actually, the people responding this time, likely a factor of more of those 55 to 64 had lived in the county a mean of 43 years. So, you know, as Peter was talking about kind of our history and heritage here, we have a lot of people who have lived here for a long time, or all their lives, as I have. This is what we saw for employment growth in the next 12 months. So we have 42% who say increase slightly or increase significantly. They are saying growth at about 14%. That is exactly the same as we saw in 2015, but the difference is the decrease group. While the size of the decrease group is the same, the percentage of change is significantly higher. So we're having 22% of those declining respondents indicating that's the mean employment difference. So they're going to be cutting some people. Fortunately, that's a smaller group. We looked at a number of issues facing the community. They're not all listed here. We'll have a more complete presentation in the full study, but these are the top 5 issues. And healthcare costs followed very closely by talent recruitment and staffing, the skilled labor shortage, an economic slowdown. There were several, especially verbatim comments in the study talking about the fact that they feel that the economy in general is slowing a bit, and especially here in the community. And it's interesting around competition. And that's not something we have traditionally seen a lot of here. And I think, in fact, because some of what Manitowoc companies' influence have been is really to set up some of these companies with a pretty strong presence from Manitowoc and then minimize their competitive environment. We're seeing competition as more of a factor. Sales growth, basically fairly comparable with what we saw. We do have a stronger group saying decreasing slightly, but we also have a stronger group saying increase slightly. So basically net there is fairly comparable. The size of increase and decrease also fairly comparable. So they're looking at that 6-month year to year as being relatively consistent. Future of our economy, this one's a little bit varied. We're actually seeing a slight downturn. We have a lower response on the positive side, and actually a lower response on remaining flat. So we've got a little bit more polarity. Slight declines, moderate declines, significant declines, all increased, and the percentage of decline went from 9 to 12, which 12% isn't terrible, but moving from 9 to 12 is literally a 33% increase in what they saw as decreasing in the economy. Their future business performance, basically consistent, a larger group to the flat side. Fortunately, not significant growth and decline, but again, the size of the decline for those that are having it is more significant. So again, kind of the long and short of it is the people that are having issues are feeling those issues significantly. As I look through some of the cuts in the data by industry segment, interestingly enough, the strongest 2 segments that came out of the study are manufacturing and financial services. Those 2 have the strongest growth, both on a percentage basis and an employment basis. They also had a more positive future outlook. So, you know, interestingly enough, as we would think about Manitowoc Company leaving, our first thought would be it's the manufacturers that are going to be impacted by this. Actually, we're finding that they're seeing some of this as a positive environment. It's offered them the opportunity to expand into other customers that they were not able to do so before because of their commitments. So some of that is positive. The weakness seems to be in the retail and the hospitality side. And we're seeing some declines both present and future in that area. And I think as we continue on this journey, that impact in the long term is going to still trickle down through this economy for a couple of years at the very least. So what happened with Manitowoc Crane closure is indicated in the summary slide. 36% said that their business was directly impacted. 77% said negative, although we've got a group that has positive or split. What's happened? Well, the positive said it's allowed them to hire and retrain employees. It's generated additional business for them because they were able to look at other venues. On the negative side, obviously, loss of business, unemployment due to direct ties there, lower income levels, and we've heard that quite a bit, that the jobs that are replacing those people who were displaced at Manitowoc Company are not at the same level from a pay scale, and that's created some differentials. So, and some of the mixed items is that it's created opportunities for both employment and unemployment, but it's also impacted income, and there's been some issues around loan defaults on the negative. So what is the financial impact on their business? Basically, they're saying overall about 9%. But one that's a little bit concerning is the mean score for those that had employment changes is about 18 employees. So we are seeing some impact out there. We're going to continue to analyze and focus on that. Basically, in the next 12 months, do they see the closure having an impact on their business? A lot of people do, and it's negative, but we've got uncertainty out there as well. As I said, I think we're still in that kind of trickle-down period where people are saying, okay, if I have a restaurant or I have a hotel, we haven't felt the full effect yet. It hasn't been in the market long enough. Even the declining income piece for those industries is significant, because if I'm not making what I was, I may not be able to dine out as often as I had. So I think we've still got some things we have to look at. How do we help? Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet out there. Our top response, both in 2015 and 2017, is nothing, no answer. And we come back to some of the items we heard earlier: attract more business, promote and advertise the community, continue programs, discussions, and education, more skilled labor training. So again, the good news is I think a lot of the things that people are looking for, we are already moving on in the community through our different organizations. And what could other businesses do? Again, we don't see a lot of stellar opportunities there, but just as individual businesses, can we help attract more people, more employees? Can we help in loan processes and promote the area? This I thought was actually very positive. In both studies, our closing question was, on a scale from 1 to 7, with 7 being extremely likely, how likely are you to live in this community in 5 years? And we basically didn't move the needle at all. So even though we had a major employer close doors, they're not packing their bags and leaving the community, and that's very positive and speaks to the character and the loyalty of this community. We will have more, probably a full 1-hour presentation in coming weeks. Again, I thank you guys for the opportunity, and I'll turn it over back to Peter for the awards. Thank you very much.